Life Audio.
Hello, and welcome to the Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic podcast. I am your host, John Seidel. This is your home for real stories, radical vulnerability, and remarkable comebacks. In the end, this podcast is a place for the desperate, the downtrodden, the destitute, and especially the drunk. But it's also a place of hope and healing. I know that firsthand because I'm the Christian who became an alcoholic, not the other way around. Today, I've found sobriety after decades of struggling. But more importantly than finding sobriety, I found Jesus. My prayer is that as I interview people just like you and just like me, along with professionals in the fields of trauma, faith, and addiction recovery, you will find the peace that is available to you through Christ on the other side of whatever you're going through and whatever addiction that might be. Because let's face it, we're all addicted to something. So welcome. Let's get radically vulnerable as we explore what it looks like to be on this journey of messy sanctification. We'll be right back after this. One of my favorite stories when it comes to sobriety is not mine. It's from a woman named Heather Kopp. And Heather wrote a memoir called Sober Mercies. And in there, she tells this story of sitting in a AA meeting and at treatment, and a woman blurts out, "I drove drunk with my kids." And that woman is Heather. She admits it to everyone. "I drove drunk with my kids." And this woman in the circle kind of looks at her and says, "Didn't we all?" And what Heather explains is that woman wasn't responding that everyone in that room must have driven drunk. What she was saying was, we all have those moments that we say, this will be the thing I never do, and we do it. Especially if you are someone with a misordered and disordered relationship with alcohol. Sarah Zanotti, our guest today, literally did drive drunk with her 3-year-old niece in the back seat. I know that because she's written a song about it called Sobering. And it's a song that I've created this playlist of like recovery songs, and it's on there. It's one of those songs that I listen to frequently. And it talks about how bad it got for Sarah, as well as the freedom and the grace that she has experienced. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about her story. We're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about grace. You will recognize Sarah if you are watching this on the Veritas Daily. So if you're a paying member at the Veritas Daily, which is $7 a month or $60 a year, it helps support my writing. You get some other great benefits. One of them is you can watch this podcast. And so if you want to watch this podcast, go to theveritasdaily.com, sign up, and you'll be able to watch this. Once you see Sarah's face, you will recognize her. She, especially if you're in the Christian sphere, she does a lot of skits and videos with John Crist, the comedian. And so you'll see her face and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I've seen her in John Crist stuff. You've also seen her in plenty of other stuff too, because she is a writer, an actor, a producer. And I'm excited to talk to her because she gets, when I talk about radical vulnerability, she gets radically vulnerable about the stuff that she's experienced, about why she turned to alcohol, about eating disorders, about OCD that she's experienced. And I just love her raw ability to connect. And there are plenty of times where there's some long pauses in this interview, not because we don't know what to say, but because there's just some weight to it. And Sarah has graciously decided to share that story. You know, there's a couple things that I think are so important. She says this about grace, that I'm gonna find this quote. It says, "The most sobering thing I've experienced has been grace." Oh, how true. And then there is a peace that is way better than just the instant relief. Friend, if you're listening to this podcast today, chances are you need grace. And I guess maybe I'll restate that. You do need grace if you're listening to this podcast today, because everyone who's listening to this podcast needs grace. But I think maybe you're starting to really realize it or feel it. And then second, I think if you're listening to this podcast, you're generally someone who has looked for peace in other things. Drinking, obviously, but maybe food, maybe sex, maybe your spouse, maybe Netflix, maybe your phone. And someone asked me recently I asked someone recently after a talk, like, hey, how do you think it went? And they said, and they weren't being critical, they just said, I didn't think, I thought maybe you could have talked a little bit more about what life has looked like after, and how great it's been. And I kind of chuckled. I said, here's what I can tell you. Life has been so much better since I got sober. It has not been great. And I'm not out here, and maybe someday, maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, I can be the one that tells you, oh my gosh, like I am just like on top of the world looking down on creation. But man, life is like I joke that I wrote my first book because I encountered the hardest part of my life. Then I wrote my second book, this book, Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic, because I encountered the next period of my life that I didn't think could get any worse or couldn't get any harder, and it did. And now I'm in a period that's probably going to be the third book, and it is a period in my life that's even harder. And I'm so grateful to have found Jesus or refound Jesus, because I can't imagine going through it. And so when Sarah says there is a peace that is way better than just the instant relief, I can tell you that is true. Life has not been like easy, but it has been better. It has been good. And Sarah is a testament to that. So without further ado, let's talk to Sarah Zanotti and hear her story of misordered and disordered drinking. Sarah, thank you so much for joining the Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic podcast. This is really a treat for me. I've been following you for a while, and so the fact that you agreed to come on and just be vulnerable and tell your story, I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's just really great to meet you. You just immediately put me at ease, and I can tell that we're gonna get into all the good conversation. Just really sink in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about here on the Confessions podcast. My wife is like, maybe you should just call it Confessions and you can talk about more stuff. And I'm like, I think we're probably, just going to end up talking about a lot of stuff anyway. So I don't think I need to just be broad. I think it'll just happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talked a little bit about this in the introduction, but I think people, there's plenty of places people might know you from. I think my first introduction to you was through some John Crist sketches, right? So I think people have probably seen you there. You're a songwriter. You are a writer of films. You own a production company. So I think it's funny because sometimes I'll see you pop up on other people's stuff. And I've seen you pop up in some weird places. I can't even remember, but I've seen you pop up in weird. I'm like, hey, that's Sarah. That's awesome. So tell people exactly kind of what you do right now.
Sure. So everything you said, I actually went to school for music. So I grew up doing musical theater and singing all the time and acting. And then I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. Actually, my freshman year of college, I went to Belmont here in Nashville, where I live. And then I transferred to Berklee and got a degree in songwriting. And then I giggled. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's wild to me that people can get a degree in songwriting or anything like artsy. You're like, yeah, this is my degree. And then, so I was doing music for a bit and then lived in LA for a while, came back to Nashville after a hard experience out there and really had no intentions of getting into film, moving to Nashville, 8 some years ago. But but eventually found like an acting studio where I met my now business partner, KD, and she had been working in the studio film system for a long time and was working on a project that centered around country music. So she was living in Nashville, kind of like she moved here to do like, study and figure out the songwriting world, and then ended up staying. She cast me in something, and then we started our company at the tail end of 2019. So that's my production company. It's called As If Productions. Her last name is Amond. My last name is Zanotti. So it's AZ-if, because we're both obsessed with Clueless. So for the past 5 years, we've been making independent feature films. We write them together. She directs, I act, we produce them. She used to teach editing in film school and taught me how to edit. So I do like a little bit of assistant editing, but really just like the tedious stuff that nobody wants to do. um, but yeah, we've made psychological thrillers, horror films, dark comedy, and up next we have a Christmas script that we're working on. So we're kind of the material seems to be getting lighter.
Well,
we really
here's
started
what
dark, and we're climbing that ladder.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
To that point, what I will say is, for those who do follow you on social media or don't, but will, is you're so freaking funny. And so it's, but like when I saw that you were doing the horror film, I'm like, okay, but you're also so funny. Like I was watching one recently, and you're just doing a thing, and then like this woman starts like power walking next to you, and the commentary on the woman power walking, I was like, that's hilarious. So you're really funny.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, you would think that would be the place I would naturally want to write scripts and my ideas come from, but for some reason, I say for some reason, I have like a sneaking suspicion about why, but I've always been kind of drawn to writing stories that are a little heavy hitting and maybe exploring some things that you wouldn't think that I would want to explore. But yeah, so that's the film side of things. And then this music project has really just been in the last 2 years. I got sober a little bit over 2 years ago. And as I'm sure you know, in that first year of sobriety, you're kind of inundated with so many more emotions and things that you didn't know were underneath the surface. And I started writing songs again. And I hadn't really been focusing on music since I had lived in LA. So it had been some years. I put out a few songs when I moved back to Nashville, but nothing that I was really all that. It's not like I was trying to I don't think I had the confidence or the wherewithal to be building a career at the time. I was just kind of throwing paint at the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started writing this project just to kind of process through some of the stuff that I was experiencing. And a good friend of mine is an incredible songwriter. She's also one of my mentors. And she was prodigy piano player and big songwriter back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and just an incredible human. But anyways, she wrote the record with me. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing. We just started writing, and as I was kind of processing through every layer that seemed to be coming off of okay, what do I do now with all of these feelings and these thoughts and social interactions and being by myself and God, and who am I? And so we wrote this EP, and it's 5 songs. The first song that I released was Sobering. And it's kind of about each of the phases that I experienced through that first year of sobriety. And so that's the music side of things now.
That is a perfect segue, because I was like, how am I going to jump into this? And I kind of had this idea, and now I'm realizing how perfect it is. So, I want to get into your story, and I'm just gonna read these lines,
Mhm.
and then I'm just gonna ask you to tell your story, because I think these
Sure.
lines are a great segue
Sure.
into introducing that. So these lines from Sobering, the song that Sarah wrote and that we're talking about, that I've had on literally repeat all day, starts like this: drunk driving ungodly speeds could have killed someone or me. And one time I drove with my 2-year-old niece in the back seat. Been passed out in a ditch. My mom found me like this. There was nothing she thought she couldn't fix.
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, like, I feel like there's like 7 podcasts just in those first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 lines.
Mhm.
But there's a woman named Heather Kopp, and I read her sober memoir in my first year of sobriety. And she says, she talks about being in an AA meeting, and someone says, just kind of is like talking about driving drunk with their kids. And Heather blurts out, "Me too."
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
someone next to them says, "But didn't we all drive drunk with our kids?" And the idea of like, we all have that. Whatever, like maybe you didn't drive drunk with your kids, but you drove drunk with your kids. Like, we all have that thing that we say we're never going to do, that moment that we say is going to be the end, and it ends up being the thing that we do.
Yeah.
And so like that is just like, I'm listening to your song and it's hitting me. And so with that, I'd love to turn it over to you and say, okay, what's your story? How did you get to the point of you're like, I'm getting sober, I need to get sober, of writing the line, and one time I drove with my 2-year-old niece in the back seat? Like,
Yeah.
what happened in your life that led you to that?
Yeah. Um, sadly, that experience, which was truly a rock bottom, was not the last time I drank. And it took a little bit longer after that, but that was a moment that, the next day after I had made that choice, I woke up in the middle of the night, as I guess alcohol was wearing off, and just immediately was like, the guilt was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, like I had a whole house sitting on my chest, and I, I couldn't, I couldn't process how or why I thought that was okay. Not that I thought it was okay. I just, when you're
Right.
when you're drunk, you're not thinking. Um, but it was, I would say it was probably the beginning of the end. So like, even though
Mm.
that wasn't, the moment or the day or the experience that I eventually woke up the next day and was like, I'm never drinking again. It was probably the beginning of this like overall, oh, this is not going down. Um, never again. Like how am I going to live with myself
Yeah.
if that's the person that I'm choosing to be? Um, my niece, I love her more than I could possibly explain. She's my goddaughter. She's my mini me. And I sometimes think about her now when I'm making choices about my life, and trying to be kinder to myself, because I've
Oh.
traditionally been really, really hard on myself. And I think it's part of the reason why drinking was nice, because it gave me a break from all of the endless thoughts and the punishment
Mm.
and the cycles of abuse that I put myself through in my own mind. And I
Yes.
try and think of how would I talk to her? What would I say to her? Would I be this mean to her? No,
Mm.
like, she's a child. So kind of in sobriety, actually, um, she's been an inspiration for me of like, if I were to treat, if she were my child, and she's my niece, so it's, it's right there. But, um, if I could, if I could raise myself in a way in sobriety now, how would I talk to myself? Um, So I love her, and I'm, I'm I don't know how to put, if ever one day she hears this song and she asks me questions about that when she's older, that's a conversation I'm going to have, and it's probably going to be a hard one.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm excited by the thought of being incredibly honest with her because, um, I think, speaking of childhood, sometimes we're not always, the adults in our lives are not always honest with us. And if I think about my childhood, I think I was naturally a very colorful kid. I was boisterous in a lot of ways and strong-willed and aggressive, and just, I was a performer, I think, out the gate, and had a lot of determination in every way that you could imagine. But because of maybe that, because of who I naturally am in my essence, I had a lot of people around me, not just at home, but at school too, just in my environment, that were like, don't do that, don't be this, be less. Oh no, you don't do that, that's too much. And so I think I really, because of a myriad of different reasons and experiences as a kid, I think I pretty strongly got the message that I could not trust myself,
Mm.
and that I can't trust my intuition. I can't trust how I feel, that I don't have a trustworthy perception of the world. Um, and so pretty early on, that really colorful, you know, um, bold kid, um, I disconnected from my internal world pretty much altogether.
Mm.
And I think that that's kind of what led me to where you're talking about, which was a life really spent kind of outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you don't trust yourself, then you don't have any sort of a connection to how you feel. I kind of was always trying to gauge where I was at in the world. I became incredibly hyper vigilant. I would watch everybody's expression and try to see, who's okay with me? Do people
Mm.
like me? How am I doing? Okay. Well, I've got to get people to like me, because my safety then was not internal. My safety was not in some sort of connection to myself or to God. If I could have even comprehended, I still can't comprehend God as an adult, but you know what I mean? Like, as a
Yeah.
child, I had no internal muscle that was being built. And so my okayness and my safety, I thought, was everywhere outside of me. So it became, I need everybody to like me, and I need to be impressive, and I need to be this, and I need to be that, and I've got to make sure I'm safe. And OCD developed. Then it was like, I struggled with religious OCD. So it was a matter of like good and
Mm.
bad morality. If I do this ritual over and over, maybe I can make it so that I'm good. I would thought loop, and I would sift through every single interaction I ever had. And I would try and figure out from memory, how are people responding to me? Did they like me? Am I okay? Let me find the place where I probably inevitably messed up. If I can just figure it out, then I'll have a game plan for next time. I mean, John, my entire life was spent either dissociated or completely in my mind, and not at all
Yes. Yes.
connected to my heart, to my intuition, which I feel like is God speaking to me, to how things felt. I had no awareness of how I felt about anything. And if I did have any awareness of it, my feeling about life was that feeling sad, feeling pain, feeling anger, all of those things meant I was failing, because I should
Mm.
be perfect. And my okayness and my safety was just all at the mercy of whether or not I could be perfect for everyone. And so OCD was tough. I think it was my way of trying to just have some sort of control.
Which comes up in the song as well, by the way. Like, I
Uh-huh.
appreciate that.
The hand washing was a
the hand
ritual that
washing.
was as an adult. I've put it in a
Yeah.
few of my movies too. Um,
And as someone who also has OCD, like, I get it, right?
yes.
Like diagnosed OCD. You know,
Yep.
mine didn't manifest necessarily as much in the hand washing or what. Mine was more the intrusive thought.
Mhm.
OCD, I should say, is, right? Like, it's still something I work through and go to therapy for, and I'm in a much better place. But it's not ironic to me that a fellow OCD person then developed a
Yes.
problem with alcohol, because
Yes.
we
And
hate
'cause,
our thoughts.
you're exhausted. And I think that
Yes.
I spent so long trying, it's like the tightest grip possible, right? Eating disorder. Like, let me just try and have some control, but also, make sure that I can ensure some sort of safety for myself. Because it's definitely not inside.
Yeah. Right.
And so you've kind of this tight grip really developed as a kid. But then I also look back and I go, I would restrict food and then I would binge.
Mhm.
And I would try and be a perfect, my mom used to use the line, my Christian girl, and I try and be a perfect Christian girl. And then I would just rebel. And
Mm.
it was like I was constantly regulating this tight grip, and then I needed relief from that tight grip because it's too much to sustain.
Yeah.
I had no balance. I had no center. I was terrified to feel anything besides fine. I was terrified to express anything besides I'm good. I had zero idea that I even had needs. Nothing was in my
Mm.
control, and I was never asked. I was never
Mm.
asked how I felt. So, you know, I also think that we're in a generation now, like the kids today, like so much awareness has been around. Like, how do you feel? Well, what does
Yeah.
that feel like to you? And well, what do you think? And what do you choose? It just that wasn't a part of, you know, the time.
Yeah.
So to no one's fault, it's just, these are that's the belief that I just formed, that that I was unreliable and that there was something missing in me. I Religious OCD was a big one. A lot of my rituals were around that.
Mm. And you
And
grew up in a Christian home.
I did. I grew up in a Christian home, sang in choir, church choir. Yeah, I had this thing that a ritual, I guess, that developed when I was younger. When I was praying in church and closing my eyes and looking down. I thought, well, why would we be closing our eyes and looking down at the devil? And so in my mind, I thought, I never want to be closing my eyes and looking down because I felt like that was bad. I was doing something that wasn't right. So I made this agreement with myself that every single time I blinked, I would look up at God. And then it became every time I blink and swallow at the same time, that's like, I'm doing something. And sort of like in my child mind, I was like, that's worshiping God. So then I developed a tick of every time I blinked, I would swallow at the same time and look up at God. And as you can imagine, it's a little odd to see. And my mom was like, I saw you up on stage. I was like in a play. And she was like, you started doing that thing. And yeah, that one was a hard one to break. And then it turned into, I would try and bless the corners of the room every time I walked in a room to try and make sure that it was like a holy space. Like it just, it escalates and it becomes, it has a form of its own.
We'll be right back after this.
To get back to your question,
Listen, the detours about weird OCD things, I could be like, yeah, like
Yeah,
that time I ran over a squirrel
yeah.
and like literally spent 30
And
minutes looking for blood because I was convinced I hit someone. And my wife is like, what took you so long at the store? And I'm like, well, you wouldn't get it.
yeah, you're like, yeah, no idea. You're like, what didn't take so long at the store?
Yeah, right. I mean, my goodness. I get it. Yes,
Yeah.
you're among friends.
Oh, well, that is relieving. It's something that I actually was not even aware of any sort of a diagnosis until I actually put out our first movie. And when we got press back on the movie, I had taken some personal stories from my own life and put them in there. And a bunch of publications and writers wrote up, like, we really love how they spotlight harm OCD and religious OCD. And I was like,
Wow.
wait, those are my stories.
You're like,
It's like, wait, so that's weird?
that's, oh.
Oh, that's not normal? Um, but, you know, so yeah, it's an incredibly exhausting way to live, and it's completely void of any real peace. And
Mhm.
I transferred all of my feelings about how I was doing for people to God. And so my relationship with God was a pretty
Mm,
performative one. And I
mhm.
really think that I thought I can't show him all of me because there's something missing, and he won't love me if I do X, Y, and Z. And um that's also just so hard as a kid, then trying to perform for God.
Yep.
Um and all of that just mental exhaustion and tight grip. Um when I became a college student and started drinking, uh, I would just, it was like, thank goodness I don't have to think so hard.
Yes.
Thank goodness I don't have to try so hard. Um, and, my drinking, it wasn't, if I look at it over a span of, t- you know, 10 to 12 years from college to early 30s, like, I went through a period of time in college where every time I drank, I'd black out. I, you know, drove drunk. I did all of those things. But then I went through periods of time where I lived in LA for a while and wasn't drinking. But
Yeah.
then it was, I'm restricting food and I'm restricting calories. There were a lot of alcohols, I would say, just a lot of ways that I tried to just relieve the tension that I was experiencing. And
What a great line. Yeah.
yeah. And so drunk driving ungodly speeds, I have a very specific image in my mind when that comes up. When I moved to Nashville after I graduated college, I would drive drunk home all the time, and I would just fly down the streets 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever time I was trying to get home. And truly, thank God. I mean, it makes me emotional to this day. Thank God.
Yep.
Um, I didn't I didn't hurt anyone or
Yep.
myself. Um, in those moments.
And was that, do you think part of that was you had worked so hard, at controlling things? When you're drinking, it allows, okay, I can let go. And it's like, I think you kind of alluded to this, but like when you let go, like you let go because there's so much
Yeah.
almost like
Oh,
built up
it just was
tension.
like so much tension, just relief from that tight grip. And then also like socially, oh my gosh, like I have never really felt comfortable in social situations. I always felt so, well, speaking of not really having a relationship with my internal worlds, like when you're essentially performing for people all the time and trying to figure out who to be so that they like you, even if they do like who you're presenting, you can't feel it because it's not really
Mm,
you. So I always just felt so alone and so other and so desperate. And also recognized I could make people laugh. So even these like genuine qualities that I feel like God has really gifted me with, like the ability to be funny and make people laugh, like it was only a matter of time before I started using that. I used anything that I could to just try and feel loved
Yeah.
and accepted. And yet I could tell people, quote unquote, adored me. And I was like, why do I still feel so alone?
Hmm.
Um, why am I dating this person? I kind of feel like I maybe don't even like them, but that would have never mattered to me because as long as they liked me, that was really all I valued. All I really knew to value was how other people felt about me. And so I got really good at kind of not consciously, but unconsciously manipulating how people felt about me and just being who they needed me to be. And
Wow.
when you're that outside of yourself, it is so uncomfortable. So when you take that first drink and you can finally just not have to think about it so much. And if somebody doesn't like me in this room, fine. And also,
Right.
uh, I can be, wow, actually, I'm a little even funnier and I don't care that much. And also, I'm just not thinking.
Yes.
I was just like, I just don't want to think anymore.
And I think
And
that's what, like, people have asked me, like, do you miss, like, I mean, there's, like, I'm honest, like, there are things I miss, right? Like, I
uh-huh,
do like the taste of bourbon, right? Like,
uh-huh,
so in some ways I do miss that, right? But one of the things I miss so much is that carefree of, like, I am so tired of the crap of the day. I'm
uh-huh,
so, like, X, Y, and Z that, like, yeah, I miss that. I
uh,
miss the instant relief. And that's why it was so dangerous for me, right? Is
yeah,
because it was instant relief. So yeah, I miss that. Now, I
mhm,
don't miss, like, all the other crud that it did to me, but I miss
yeah,
that. Like, if
yeah.
there was one thing I could do that right now, like, that would just give me the instant relief, like, yeah, I miss that.
You're like, I'll take that. Yeah, it's, and then you get to a point where you're like, for me, the day that I woke up, um, and I knew I
Mm,
was about to make this choice, it was because it was not because I had burned my life to the ground. In fact, my life looked fine. I had a business, people would be shocked to know I had any problems at all.
yeah,
But I woke up and I thought, speaking of what you're speaking of, it's like you start to value that the instant relief becomes less of a value
yeah,
because you're like, there's, I think God has called me to more than simply survival. Like, I
yeah,
think there's more for me. And and I don't want to get there because I'm pushed there from chaos. I think God is going, "Hey, I can let you uh nobody's going to move you from this numb stationary place. But what you are really going to grieve in this lifetime is the value of everything I have for you. Like that's you becoming way more than this. Like
mm.
I'm not gonna do you know what I'm trying to say? Where it's like
I know exactly what you mean, because I
the
think,
value of the relief, I'm like, okay, the relief from, yeah, existence, but do I actually want to live?
yeah,
Can
right.
I actually live? Because I'm not living. And
Yeah, when you're running away from your feelings all the time, it's like, there's actually a value in being uncomfortable, right? There's
yes,
a value in feeling things deeply. There's a
yes,
value in there's a value in pain, right? Like, I love C.S. Lewis, and he talks about that. Like, there is a value, there's something that it does
yeah,
to us. And so if you're just trying to numb it all the time, you're not
yes.
feeling anything. You're just like walking around like a zombie.
The whole, it's wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what I was like, I can get relief from the existence, but what you're talking about, the the wholeness that you experience in the discomfort, in the pain, if I'm curbing the lows, I'm curbing my highs, and then I'm just kind of in this weird nothingness. And
Yes.
I'm just trying to find any sort of stimulation, and that is so, uh it lacks so much peace, and it actually lacks so much meaning. And, um, I there was a richness to life that I was like,
Mm.
I've gotta be willing to feel all of it, and maybe, just maybe, all of these feelings that I keep on have that I've equated to being a failure in life, like, I really thought feeling any sort of, um, challenge at all, whether that be feeling sad, feeling angry, anything less than copacetic, I thought I was
Mm.
failing at life. I was like, what if that's actually, God asking me to be more, right? Like, in here
Wow.
is where I actually dig the well. In here is where I actually become a whole human being. Uh, Amanda Cook, I was watching an interview of her recently. She's a praise and worship singer. She wrote an album called Brave New World that got me through one of the darkest seasons of my life. And I was watching an interview with her, and she was like, now I take my grief to God. I take my shame to, like, I
Yes.
feel the experience to God. And it's like,
Yes.
instead of trying to block it, numb it, avoid it, ignore it,
Yes.
suppress it, oh, it's actually the vehicle that takes me deeper in.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like there was a part of my soul that said, if you really want to leave if by the time you leave this world, you actually want to experience being yourself, you've got to be willing to feel.
Mm.
You've got to be willing to take all of those emotions deeper, or just at all.
So you talked about that, like, that realization that you're talking about, which I think is so good. Did you literally just wake up one day and you're like, okay, this is it? Like, or did it kind of lead up to that? Like, and for some people there is a moment like where it just happens, right? And that's great. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, you know, I think I can look back on different times in my life, and it's funny because, like, I had a boyfriend in high school and college who told me I should stop drinking, and that was a decade before I even thought
Mm.
anything about it. Um, there were like, I can look back on these like little moments and go, there was always sort of like this before it was really ever a formed thought or in my like a conviction. There were moments that I was like, this is this is not good for me. Um, the experience with my niece was kind of a moment that was sobering, although not, the final straw. The night before I had that wake up call or that moment of clarity, I was just at my house drinking with my roommate at the time, and I drank the same amount that I had gotten accustomed to drinking. And for whatever reason on that particular evening, my body had a complete reaction to it. I got very sick. And I woke up the next morning, and it was like pretty pretty undeniable, pretty clear. And it was like, you have two trajectories in life. You can go this way or you can go this way.
Mhm.
Which one are you going to choose? And that was it. I called I called my friend, my mentor, and I said, "I think I need to get sober." And she was like, "Yeah, okay." And that was it. That was the first phone call, but, um, you know, that was the first day. It was September 8th, and, that night I still smoked. I used to smoke weed to go to sleep, and, I smoked myself to sleep that night, but the next day, September 9th, is the day that I say is my true sober, anniversary, which was, like, the first day that I had had no alcohol, and I also stopped smoking. Um, yeah, and I was just like, I wanna I wanna do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I wanna be here. I wanna live.
Yeah.
I went to a couple
It's
of AA meetings, but it didn't really, it just didn't feel completely right for me. Um, but I worked with someone, and yeah.
so I think so 9-9 you're saying is your sober
Mhm,
date, if I heard
mhm.
that right. Yeah, mine is
Yeah,
7-9 of the following. So I think your probably was like 22, mine's 23.
yeah.
So so something great about the ninth of the
Something
month,
about
I
the
just
ninth.
say. Yeah. And what I love about your story, and I think I want to stress this, especially to people listening, and I've written about this, but I want to make clear, and I love that your story does this, is you don't have to have a rock bottom moment to make a decision to like take that fork in the road, right? And so even though in the song you talk about it, but I think what's great is like, yeah, the driving drunk with my niece wasn't my rock bottom moment. And even the decision, the waking up, and you had kind of that adverse reaction the night before, but it wasn't like you woke up in jail.
Mm-mm.
Like there wasn't this thing. And I think it's okay and good. Like people, you don't have to wait for the rock bottom moment to say I'm going to change my relationship with alcohol. And I think that's
Mhm.
one of the things I love about your story is that you didn't have that, but you woke up and you said, okay, this is I do have two trajectories here, right?
Mhm.
And I think I've heard you explain it, and I think this is kind of what you were saying earlier is like you felt like the Lord saying to you, if you want to go where you want to go, you can't go there with alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that clearly. It almost felt audible. It was like the person you wanna be in this life, she can't take alcohol with her. And it was
Mm,
like, that's really where the pain was. The pain was not in the like, again, I hadn't set fire to my whole life. That's not where my pain I mean, my pain was there, but what was more painful to me was the idea that I would never actually be myself. It
mm,
I would get to the end of this life and be like, "Yeah, no one ever got to meet Sarah. I barely even got to." That to me was like, "Oh, I could leave here and I could just leave a calling on the table." Like
yeah.
I didn't become who I feel so convicted to be. Um, that
Where
became
do you
my
think
driving
those lies
force.
came from, by the way? You kind of talk about the lie, it seems like, is like you can't be yourself, right?
Mhm,
And so you talked a little bit earlier, and I think it's important, just like there were some people early in your life that said you're too much, you're too loud. I had those same people,
mhm.
and I can tell you that as I've worked through therapy in the last year, I knew they were there, but it's shocking to me how much power I gave them from a young age that carried through with me. And so I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like that the lie that you can't be yourself, where do you think that started?
I think it started really young for me. I think, I didn't have a lot of choice as a kid, and, um, I had people in my life, adults in my life who I think were just trying to protect me and keep me safe, but had an idea about, um, you know, what the right things for me to do were, and so it's just I, I was not ever really validated in what felt right to me.
Mm.
And when I would make choices, I was invalidated or I was quickly corrected. Um, and so it just kind of constant, constant messaging of who you are is wrong. Um,
Yeah.
it's just not, uh, and I don't even know if I know that that wasn't even the intention. That's just how I felt. That's just how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that can be the case. Like, I think about it now and it's like, especially now if I were to have kids, it's like you set kids free in the world and then it's hard to watch them navigate it, I'm sure. And you want to protect them and you want to keep them safe and you don't want them to experience what you experienced. It's like it's so hard to just let people live, let people figure
Yeah.
it out and watch it. It can be so painful, but I just didn't really get to build that muscle of choice. I didn't really I didn't get to succeed or fail by my own merit. I didn't get to learn those hard lessons on my own and kind of figure it out. Uh, and teachers in school, I mean, I never got to go to a single like semester party, all the things. I was just kind of everywhere I looked and everywhere I turned, it just kind of felt like, um, stop, no, don't, not okay, um, And so I
Yeah.
think one day I just went, all right, it's too hard to fight this.
Uh,
I don't wasn't thinking that in real time. And just if I think back in retrospect, I think I just at some point I just kind of surrendered every ounce of personal autonomy and power that I had. And I just went, here you go. Tell me who I am. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to feel.
mm.
That's it.
That.
In some ways, it was a huge blessing because I think it's why I became a really great actress. Because
Yeah.
I started becoming so aware of how other people were doing and how other people felt and what other people needed. I was so disconnected from myself, but I became incredibly empathetic.
Yeah.
Um, to the point of like I lost myself completely, but I knew everyone else. And I could easily imagine somebody else's experience. I could easily dive into somebody else's mind. And so now when I play characters and I write films, I'm like, yeah, I've stood in a lot of people's shoes. So
Yeah.
I can do that. So in a weird way, I mean, I don't think anything's an accident. I like look back and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like the entire time it was forging me to be an artist. And thank God for that.
Yeah, and how
Uh,
he took that, right? Like what
right?
was in a sense meant for evil, like he can take for good. And I think
Yeah.
what you're
It's
saying is
so
so,
purpose.
yeah. Yeah.
And the end
And
of the
it's so
song.
like
Oh, go.
yep, go ahead.
No, please, you.
Well, I was going to say as the father of a young girl who
Mhm.
I see so many of the things you're talking about in her,
Mm.
a deep empathy. She's 9. A deep empathy, but yet a hyper awareness. She's been there's a thing called HSP, a highly sensitive person. She's
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And so there is a greatness to that,
Yes.
but there is also a something that worries me deeply, and yet I have to let her experience some of that. And yet I
Yeah.
don't like, no, because I see her as the little girl that I danced with in the hospital room when she was first born,
Mhm.
and that's something that I need to work through. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate you saying that, but you're going to say towards the end of the song, there's a
Well,
line.
before I forget, you bring up a really great point, which is that sometimes it's not even, you know, if you were born with that kind of sensitivity, Um, I think it's really easy. and natural for you to try and regulate your own emotions by regulating everybody else's, because you're so sensitive that you can feel their discomfort, you can feel their pain, and because that is then painful and uncomfortable for you, you can get really good at shape-shifting and trying
Mm.
to elevate their mood, not necessarily for them, but so that you can feel safe in the room too. And I think that that's something that, like, empaths struggle with a lot, sensitive people, because you're like, I will finally be okay if everybody else here is okay, because I don't know how to separate me from them. And I think that that is also something I was dealing with, and that had nothing to do with mine. Anybody who was around me, teachers, parents, friends, nothing. It was just, I am sensitive. And,
Yeah.
and thank God, but yeah, it's been difficult for me to be able to separate myself from other people. Um, it's something that I'm just now building a relationship with in these 2 years of sobriety. Like, I'm finally okay with. It's funny, I didn't feel like anybody was allowing me to live and experience life, but everybody that I met, I was also in my own way uh, trying to change so that I could then feel more comfortable. It's funny how we kind of mirror things like
Mm.
that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
um, I didn't want people to feel. Now I'm getting better at being like, they're going to feel sad today. And I don't have to fix that for them. In fact, I'd be robbing them of something probably really, really beautiful if I do.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
that's a
That's a
big
great
one.
perspective.
That's a big one for me. A big lesson that I've learned in these 2 years is just what I've robbed myself of and what I've robbed other people of by trying to save them and save myself in the process.
How do you then, you know, you talked about the artist a little bit, the Christian artist earlier, and so maybe this is part of the answer, but so if for so long you were trying to shapeshift and get away from the emotions and then use the drinking and
Mhm,
the weed and the whatever to run away from the emotions,
mhm.
what does it look like now for Sarah to sit with and handle and deal with those uncomfortable emotions?
Oof. It is a daily walk. It is a daily decision, a moment by moment thing. You know, I would say that I still have tells. I can tell when I'm like, "Oh, I'm distracting myself," right? There are other alcohols, right? Like, we've got
Amen.
phones, we have TV, we have, um, endless coffee dates with friends. Whatever it is, there's always a way to run and to distract. Um, but I would say that I've been fortunate enough to be able to really, really sit through and bear and have the courage. I've prayed for courage, just courage. Like, God help me have the courage to just bear this emotion.
Uh-huh.
And processing all the way through something to the point where it lifts off of my chest, I feel lighter. And not only do I feel lighter, but I feel like, uh, and speaking of the song and sobering, the most sobering thing I've experienced has been grace. That everything
Come
in the
on.
past was repurposed for the future. And every single time I really sit with an emotion and let it I let it burn in me. Um I I receive epiphany, or I receive peace, or I receive just a deeper capacity than I had before. I feel like I have more endurance. Like, there's a feeling of there's a feeling of peace that is way better than just the instant relief, right? That we were talking about before, that is just unparalleled. And yeah, the hard part is just feeling through it. But I'd say today what that actually looks like, it looks like prayer. It looks like sitting down at my piano and just being very honest with myself and with God. It looks like crying. It looks like screaming sometimes. Uh, it
Yep.
looks like going and talking to a friend and just being witnessed. Um, it looks like saying the hard thing. Like, it looks like
Mm,
communication, right? There was so much I kept inside all the time. And so now it's
yep.
just the bravery of, hey, like, oof, that's not okay with me. That really hurts. Um, Speaking of vulnerability, but it's like it's having the courage to be fully authentic and like have your raw experience of life. And it's not for the weak, right? But I don't believe
Yep.
anybody's weak. None of us are. Um It's just that so often I think we live in this projection of what we want to be the case rather than the actual reality. And so now it's just like if I can be still for 2 seconds and radically accept what is, then I can go from there.
Mm.
Also, it's not nearly as monstrous as we think it's going to be. I would say distraction and avoidance is far more intolerable to me now than just crying.
Mm.
Right? It's like, why do we have to drag it out?
We'll be right back after this. That is funny, right? Because I found that like it's this was just the other night actually. My wife was out either with some friends or at a church thing or something. I don't know, like I had football on or something. And yet I was still kind of processing some things and like by the way, just because I'm sober and now I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, like life is still hard. Newsflash. And I don't think
Yeah.
either of us are promising that it's like
Yeah.
going to be easy. And I just like I was like I could sit here or I could just like turn the TV off, lay in bed, think and pray about this. And like that was literally more appealing to me than watching football. Like and I'm like there was like a moment I'm like who are you? You know, like who are you? Like who's this guy? What have you done with John? You
Yeah.
know? But yet that's the truth. And I think sometimes it almost to a person, everyone that I've interviewed has said something similar to what you just said of like the peace and the relief that I found in being sober and being authentic and spending time with the Lord. I know it's hard to understand, but yet that has been like that is so sweet and it is
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think what is so hard for me sometimes is like I talk with people who are in early sobriety and they're like, does it get better? And I'm like, yes, it does. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt when I say it is beautiful. Like there is something better. It really is awesome. I don't know, like how do you explain that to someone?
I think I think it's just your values really start to shift. Where you start to realize, before I used to really value what other people thought about me or whether or not somebody else was okay. And now I actually really just value whether or not I find peace in this situation. Now I actually value and honor how I feel and my intuition. Like I bring intuition up a lot, and I know that that's a word that some people get a little tripped up on, but for me, again, that is God speaking to me. That is my
Mm-hmm.
gut. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason. why I feel a certain way. And sometimes I don't even know why, but that's faith, right? You don't have to know
Yes.
why. You don't have to understand. But the more and more I line up with that guidance, the less I value the outcome, the less I value the outside, what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because the piece is just, again, it's undeniable. So that's what sobriety looks like now. That's what my days look like now. It looks like as often as I can and as much as I like, just trying to align myself with peace. And um some days I'm better than others.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for anyone who is saying, like, who's really resonating with your story,
Uh-huh.
which I think if you can't resonate in some way, you don't have a pulse. But like, what is your advice to them about, hey, I think, like, I want that, like what you just talked about, like that piece, that author of peace, like I want to get there. And I think especially, this podcast is called Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic, right? So it's like again, newsflash, like you can be a Christian and that be missing in your life. Okay.
Mhm.
Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
was for me, it
Oh,
was for
yeah.
you. So like, what is your advice to that person who says, okay, I want to get there, I want that, but like, I don't even, the idea, the thought of what I have to go through scares me.
Um, my advice is more of like a call, which is like, we need you. It's like the world needs you. And if you could for a second believe that you were uniquely and perfectly made to be like you have an intention and a purpose and a place in this world. And if you spend your whole life being a few degrees separated from that person or just taking yourself out of the game, what a loss. Like, I think it would be really beautiful if people showed up inside of their intention and followed their peace, because then we would have a fighting chance at actually feeling connected to ourselves and to other people. Like I said earlier, I always felt so alone because I wasn't actually home. Like I was outside somewhere trying to be something else for everyone else. And so they liked an idea. There was an
Right.
attachment, not a connection. But the coolest
Ooh, that's
part
good.
about sobriety is that actually you stop thinking so much about yourself. And that's pretty relieving too. Because like, oh, I get to actually see the person in front of me. And it becomes way less about everything that you feel like you need to get because you think you lack something. And it becomes about everything that you have to give.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is far more satisfying than any bourbon ever will be. Understanding that you lack nothing. You are not missing a single thing. You have everything you need. And if you have everything that you need, there's nothing for you to get, there's nothing outside of you that is going to make you whole, then oh my gosh, you get to live the rest of your days becoming more and more and more so that you can give more and more and more.
Which is the call of our
Which
lives,
is the call.
right?
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't shock us, even though it does, but like, oh, the whole idea of denying yourself and giving to others, actually giving you peace. Wow. It's like we've read that since the beginning of Sunday school. And
Right?
yet, I think
And
for
yet,
me,
Yeah.
so many of these like truths that I just ignored, brushed over, thought were silly from when I was growing up have become so alive to me in sobriety, right? And I think it's because it's not like so a lack of alcohol has done that. Well, I mean, I guess in some ways, like I'm done destroying my brain, so yes, I think it shouldn't be a shock that I can see things clear. But but what you said, I think, is so important. Is like the gateway is like denying yourself. When you learn that, like, you know what, I'm not just going to fulfill every desire, fulfill every need to escape, fulfill every need to cope and mask and whatnot. That practice of denying yourself like opens up a gateway. And so I love that you said that. Like, thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Isn't it exciting to think about the future when you think about it in terms of like, if I lack nothing, then there's so much I have to create. There's so much to give. There's so much new. There's so much to build. Rather than thinking about the future and thinking, oh gosh, I hope I can, like, I hope I can survive it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, I want to feel like I'm just for the rest of my days. Like, there's not a single day that I, I can't create something. That's exciting. Even if it's creating what we're doing right now, we're creating conversation. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much life to be
Yeah.
lived. And we're never separate from it. I think that that's the most devastating part of all. The biggest lie ever told was that we're ever separate from God, was that we're ever separate from true life
Mm-hmm.
itself. And it's
Yeah.
like, if you think that, then you're desperate and you're just desperately guessing and grabbing and trying to get. This doesn't have to be that way.
I think
Um,
like what you said is I tell people that like when I got sober, it was like taking a limitless pill because
yeah,
I feel like so what you're talking about creativity and
yeah,
like approaching the future with like more of like a like a carpe freaking diem, you
yeah, it's
know
exciting.
um yeah, it's like because like yeah, I took like this limitless pill, but by giving something up, I took this limitless pill that my creativity and my work ethic and my brain power, like physically but emotionally and spiritually, is just like so much better, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so I think that's I think that's a key part of what you're saying. I want to ask you this as we kind of wrap up. How would you categorize, how would you explain, how would you decipher what has your relationship with God been like since you've made this decision and this choice?
Um, yeah, I think the biggest I think the biggest thing for me to really truly believe is that um I I can't mess up. There's nothing that I could ever do to make him love me more, and there's nothing that I've ever done that made him love me less. Um, you know, when you are living in a dissociated way outside of yourself, desperate, feeling disconnected from truly God, who's, Holy Spirit is in us, then you're walking such a tightrope, and it's really easy to then try and assess where in life you're failing. And I think, what's the scripture? Consider it all joy. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, every single piece of this, like, I'm not failing. And so there's actually space and room for me to build an honest and vulnerable relationship with God. Um, I think I'm still learning. I think I'll be learning for the rest of my life, but um, I think I've finally maybe learned how to just start having a conversation, rather than hoping he's having a good time in the audience of my one woman show. Like I'm I'm humbled. I'm humbled by grace. Um and yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I just think that there are no rules. And I think I always tried to like subscribe to so many rules.
Mm.
And now I'm just like, I just like talking to him.
Yes. Yes. That
It's
is
pretty
so
elementary.
beautiful.
My relationship
And
with God is pretty elementary. But that's kind of the only thing that really makes sense. And no sense
oh,
at all. It's like I just can't. I've really had to let go of the idea that, to be performing and doing well, you have to know the rules and you have to know what's expected of you and you have to understand. And I think the one thing I now really understand is that I'm never going to understand.
I think you just so beautifully summed up, I talk about the importance of abiding, and that is it right there, right? Like, it's elementary, you know, uh it's not ritualistic, and yet I do get up every morning. I used
Mhm.
to be the one that was like, quiet time in the morning, like, stop
Yeah.
telling me what to do. And now I do it, but it's like
Yeah.
full circle. Like, it's not because I have to. I'm like, no, I get to. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like, it's a praying, and it's a writing, and it's a journaling, and it's a asking, and it's a seeking, and it's just a talking. And yes, it is elementary. And the irony is that in the elementary aspect of it is become, um, I found a ritual. I don't know if that even makes
Yeah.
sense.
No,
Like, it's just,
I get what you're saying. I really do. You know what it is too is I'm less careful now with God. I used
mm,
to try and be so careful with my words. So careful. I was on that same tightrope with God. Oh gosh, like I can't go there. I can't say that. Ugh, I think God can handle it.
yes, yes,
I think I don't think
yeah,
I need to be careful with God.
yes. I've been
Um,
so mad at God over the last, like, let me put it this way. I have expressed more of my anger to God over the last 16, 17 months in
yeah.
sobriety than ever before.
Yeah.
And I feel so much more close to him.
Oh, it's just that's what it is. It's like, you know what? I'm so tired of I'm just so tired of the image in my mind is like a bullseye, and it's like, can we just address the thing in the room? Can we just talk about the thing? Can we just get to the heart of it? Can we go straight to the nerve? And I think just the willingness to just really be completely disarmed with in your own mind, your own heart, your soul, and just really lay it all out. That's that's the kind of place that I want to be in
Mm-hmm.
life. Like I I feel like I have finally I finally understand that my peace is something that I don't have to protect. I don't have to protect God, and I don't have to protect God from me.
Yeah.
God protects me from the inside out. There is no room I can't walk into. There is no thing that I have to be afraid of. Erwin McManus is a pastor that I really love. And I'm going to butcher this, but it's something along the lines of, he says, so that there is nothing left to fear on this earth besides God. Like there's nothing left here to fear. And it's like that internal world, that internal relationship protects you from the inside out so that we're not walking this tightrope forever.
Yeah.
Um,
That line you said earlier about like not treating God like it was so, I'm going to butcher what you just said, but about the one woman, like the one woman show of Sarah,
yeah.
you know, and that like he sees through it all is just so freeing.
Yeah.
And so beautiful. And I think, you know, just in general, I want to thank you for, you know, you talked about, like, I just want to thank you for showing up and allowing us to see, you know, a glimpse of who you are, right? Because I think, you know, like we said, like, follow you on social media and all that's great, and you put out great content and that's all awesome. But like, I love seeing the glimpse of you as like this, who I think you truly are, which is this like deep thinker, this deep feeler, this this person who's slow in the best way. And I love that, right? Like, you can watch a sketch and be like, oh, never would have got that, right? And so I thank you for allowing us and me a peek into that Sarah, who I think is the real Sarah. And this was just such a beautiful treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If people want to, by the way, if they want to, like, you know, follow you, if they want to see the music you're putting out, which is great, if they want to see the films that you're starring in and writing, where can they go to get more of kind of like that landing page, if you will, of you?
Yeah. I mean, my Instagram is at Sarah Zanotti. I have 2 movies that are on all streaming, like you get Amazon, any VOD platform. Yeah, one of them is called, my most recent film is called The Unraveling. I'm have a movie coming out in January on Lifetime, so it's not one of my movies, but I'm the final girl in that.
What's that one called? Because by the time this comes out, it'll have been out. So what is that one called?
What's so funny is that I don't know if they have a set title yet. They have a working title, but they can change them even like right before it comes out. So that's a to be determined. But
Okay.
yeah, I just don't want to misspeak on that. But yeah, I would say Instagram is probably the easiest like landing page to just kind of find all of the things that I'm working on. At Sarah Zanotti. Yeah.
And
Thank you
please,
so much, Sean. This has
please.
truly been a pleasure. And it's been wonderful getting to know you today. And thank you for creating such a safe space. It was really, really just easy to be in your presence. So thank you for witnessing me.
I appreciate that. And the Lord is, you know, I just love that he brings people together. And so what I was going to say earlier is please, please, please go listen to Sobering. You'll have it on repeat like I do. And it is just, let yourself feel it. Oh, let yourself feel it. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
So maybe you're like Sarah. You are listening to this, and this is the way that maybe, perhaps, the Holy Spirit is saying you have 2 paths that you can take. And those 2 paths will lead to just 2 really different trajectories in your life. And maybe that's with drinking, you know, that might be the obvious one, but it also might be with your job, with food, with your phone, whatever. And I want you to consider both, right? Like, do the mental math, do the like play it out in your head. I think in some senses that's what I did on that moment in Miami. And not like really consciously, or I'm not saying like I did it, it was more so in the moment of like, I'm sitting there staring up, waiting in my own feces, asking, what has my life become? And I'm kind of like, if I keep going, it's this and so much more. And I'm thinking, I can't really imagine it getting much worse. And maybe the things that I can imagine being worse are like not things that I want. So I don't know what is happening inside of you as a result of what Sarah has said. I hope you enjoyed the interview like I did, but I hope it is, as her song says, sobering. I hope that this is sobering for you, that you hear what life was like for her in the depths of her addiction. You've heard what life was like for me in the depths of my addiction, and I just hope that it wakes you up. It wakes you up. So, in every sense of the word, I think that this episode has been sobering. If you like this episode, here's what I want you to do. I just ask you to share it with one person. Like, that's going to be my new ask. You know that that I'd love for you to rate, like, subscribe, all the things. But I've been using this the last few weeks, but I just want you to share it with one person that could benefit from just one thing in this interview and in this episode. I know you know someone. I know someone, right? Just share it with one person, not because it grows the show, as they say in radio talk, but really I've been praying a lot about this book coming out. I've been falling asleep praying, and that's not to show you how like spiritual I am. It's to show you how desperate I am. That this book coming out, this podcast, everything that I'm doing would point people to Jesus, that it would be something that is not about me, but is helpful. And that I don't know if there's 10 steps that it takes for someone to realize that like they need to get serious about Jesus. I don't know if this podcast or this book is going to be step 2 or if it's going to be step 10, but I just pray it's a step. And I know I've kind of said that before, but I think if you send this to one person, it's going to be a step for them. I don't know which one, but it's going to be a step. As always, visit lifeaudio.com to listen to other great podcasts from our partner, Life Audio. They've been amazing in helping me get this podcast off the ground, and I appreciate it. We have crossed over 50,000 downloads. That's insane. 50,000 downloads, and I do not take that lightly, but it's not about me. It's a testament to Jesus. And then visit ChristianAlcoholic.com. You can pre-order the book, Confessions of a Christian Alcoholic. It is still available for 40% off through the publisher, and there's a link on there, but it will not be once the book comes out. So take advantage of that right now. Love you all, and we'll see you here next week.